Good evening, and welcome to episode 8 of Spooky Town Tales. It's me, your host Morgan, and joining me this evening, ever so loyal, ever so... I don't know, I can't think of anything, but welcome, Jimmy Bug.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming in,
That's what
joining
happens
me
when
again.
you have to sit across from me looking at this scruffy head. You kind of go, well, I don't know what to call that.
Jimmy really needs a haircut, and the only one I can blame is myself, because I do his haircuts for him. And no, I'm not a hairdresser. He just seems to trust me to do it.
I do. You do a fantastic job.
Well, thank you. I also could use a haircut, as my hair is now. It's past the boobs. It's belly button length. We're encroaching the hips area, so might need a trim also.
It's getting close, but I wouldn't trust me to do it.
Yeah, no,
Not
I wouldn't
even
trust
close.
you to do it. Forget about it. No friggin' way. Anyway, welcome back, everyone, for another episode. Thank you very much for your support and for your feedback. I'm glad that you're all enjoying the show. Please feel free to share with friends and anyone that you think will enjoy it. We are currently working on a pretty good cryptids episode, and I'll be bringing in a guest host for that one. So that'll be my first guest host.
Ooh, nice.
So that's going to be a pretty cool episode. But for the next few weeks, we'll be doing much of the same, some spooky stuff, another UFO episode, more ghost stories. But tonight we are delving into urban legends.
Nice.
Everyone likes a good urban legend.
Ah, good. And they spread rapidly.
They sure do. And most towns, most places have had some story
Just something that
growing
hangs
up.
on, yeah.
That's like a warning. Because, most places have them. So tonight I'm sharing some Aussie ones, but I'm also sharing some international ones, some that are just too good not to share, and some that my mum put me on track towards, given where she grew up, so from where she was, because I was interested to see what kind of creepy stories they heard to sort of stay away from this and don't go down that road, and all those little warnings that you get. So I was interested to see, because Scotland's pretty old, like pretty ancient regarding their culture.
Yeah.
So I wanted to hear from her of what had sort of hung on to her childhood. So I found a few creepy ones, and there's some there's some very, very scary ones from other parts of the world as well.
Like all the warnings you give your children to scare them into doing what you want.
Yes.
But some might not be.
Some might not be. Some might be legit, don't want you to go down there because it's a horrid monster that'll eat your brains. So, yes, tonight we are covering those. So I hope that you're ready. I hope that you're comfortable. And make sure that you've got yourself a drink. Turn out the lights and prepare to be spooked. New one tonight.
Yeah, that came in from on high.
Cop that.
Good one.
Now, before we get into some stories, I thought I'd make mention of, while I was staying, I went to stay with my mum with the girls for a couple of nights this past week, and while I was there, my mum, who is a avid listener to the show, thanks Mum, number one fan.
Nice.
The story I discussed last week about my experience in Wales.
Yes, the totally freaky, creepy one. Yes.
Yes. She's looked up she kept travel diaries of that trip. So while I was there, she looked up exactly where it was.
Ooh.
So I've got the inn name, and she's also looked up her diary entry from the night. And sure enough, in the diary, as like a subclause under this is the inn that we stayed at. It's the Climbers Inn. It was we were very tired, so we fell asleep very easily. But then underneath it, Amber and Morgan are convinced that their room is haunted. So,
But was it more of an undertone of, man, the kids were being a pain in the ass?
kind of. But then there was another bit where she's written something else and suggests that she was like, yeah, okay, I'm starting to believe what they said.
Yeah.
And then she told me she remembers the man in the room as well.
Oh.
You know how I'd said when we walked into it. So she's backed that up too and said when she heard me say it, it all came flooding back.
Yeah.
And then she remembers speaking to the lady at the desk, and one of the climbers that had stayed there had died recently. Mm-hmm. And then she very casually, under her breath, which is also written in this diary, so I read it the other night, that there'd been 20 had died that year.
Oh.
And we were there in July, I believe.
Okay.
So there'd been 20. Because the inn where we were staying was the old climber. It's where all the climbers stay.
Yeah.
So there'd been 20 had died. So it wouldn't be surprising.
That makes sense.
It does make sense.
Ooh, creepy.
Yeah, and along with that, where this part of Wales, there's all kinds of legends, like from that part of the mountain. So there's one about this vampire cannibal ghost that's pretty intense.
That's all the intense ones rolled
into one, like this monstrous thing that drags people. So that one's pretty cool. I'm going to find out more information about that and going to look into Wales a bit more, especially Snowdonia, because there's a lot of stories up there.
Sounds pretty creepy.
Yeah, so that's a little follow-up from last week, if you listened to last week's episode. So that's pretty cool that I had confirmation it was in Mum's travel diary. Woo!
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So to start off, I thought we'd start with an Aussie urban legend, as we're trying to keep it local.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with a couple of Aussie urban legends, and then we'll slowly work our way through the rest, because the rest, they just get more and more intense as we go along. So to start with, the first urban legend I thought we'd talk about is the Min Min Lights, or the Min Min Light.
Ooh.
Now, you've watched a thing with me about Min Min Lights during our research.
Yeah, we did our own two-person research night the other night. A two-person
research night, yes, we did. He joined me in my mad fossicking through videos and articles, and so we watched this documentary about it, and I've got some research here in front of me about it. Basically, in this area, the reason why it's called the Min Min Lights is not because the area is called Min Min. It's actually because there was a pub called the Min Min Pub that burnt down, and it's been since the pub burnt down that this light's been visible.
Been happening, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they call it the Min Min Lights. So they obviously believe that whatever this thing is responsible for the pub burning down.
Or connected to in some way.
Connected to. So pretty much majority of the people who live there have seen it. Mm. And it's very similar to the stories I've been telling you from this area, the Greenbushes area, and like Boyup Brook Road, with the light appearing behind the car. Yeah. Or alongside it, keeping pace with the car. Yeah. And then sort of disappearing eventually, but it seems to follow them for quite a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, some of the ones mentioned in the story were severely long, up to like 50 minutes.
Yes.
And that's an hour's drive. That gets you a long way.
And the creepy bit about the Min Min Light is, like, there was a lady doing a post run. Mm. And she said she tried to take a picture of it, but the picture didn't show up. And if it was a bright light, you'd get some kind of flare. Yeah. But they just came up black. Yep. And she said the other time she shot it with a gun. She's like, if I can't take a picture of it,
can't shoot it with a camera,
I'll just shoot it with a gun. This awesome old lady who was a postie in the area. Or she not a postie so much, but she'd do deliveries out to like all the farms. Yeah. So this thing, from all the accounts that we read and heard about, is it will travel along the roadside and it goes straight through all the fences. Yeah, and trees and everything. It seems to be able to go through things. Yep. But
still stay there.
Keep pace. Yeah. And be unaltered by objects.
Or distance as well, though, like you were saying before, it would keep the same distance from you at all times. They mentioned a few times, which is quite weird.
Which is very similar to a lot of the light stories I've heard from this area, from the southwest. So that's another super weird coincidence. So it all seems to match up. And I have got another story I'll be mentioning in the the next UFO episode coming up, same exact thing. And this one was actually between Dardanup and Boyanup.
Oh, okay.
But it was very much the same. Very bright light.
Yeah.
Kept pace with the car.
Ooh.
Very, very spooky. So, again, this little urban legend appears to be something that's...
It's a bit of everywhere.
Yeah, it's a regular thing.
Yeah.
All over Australia. So, now, it is believed that it's... the story of this phenomena...
Yeah.
It actually predates European settlement and it's actually been around, it's in a lot of the old Aboriginal myths.
Really?
So it's been experienced by Indigenous Australians. And they reckon that it's increased since the Europeans moved into the outback.
Mm.
Yeah,
interesting.
So that's very interesting to see if, whether or not it's pissed off.
Or something of the sort, yeah.
Yeah, or what it is. But that's pretty bizarre.
That's very bizarre.
So that's been noted that they reckon there's more sightings since. But then again, think about rationally.
Yeah.
More people, more sightings.
More sightings.
Yeah.
Different technology. All sorts of weird things come into it.
Yeah. So that one was in Boulia, which is far north Queensland, I believe. Now, I wanted to share this one that I've marked fucked. That's literally what I've called it, because this one is just... Now, this isn't an Aussie one, but I'm trying to sort of mix it up like a nice, a well-distributed hot chocolate where you've got, the flavours. So we've got an Aussie one and then a weird overseas one and then an Aussie one. So this one is called The Boneless.
Oh, that's not great to start with.
When I read this, first thing I thought of, Mind Flare. Stranger Things Season 3. So, according to a local folklorist, the people of the Shetland claimed that they were being once terrorised by a boneless, a blob-like beast they called a frightening, because it could scare anyone who saw it to death. Some people said it looked like a bag of wet sand.
Gross.
Yeah. Or like fleshy.
Yeah.
They said it looked fleshy.
Yeah.
How creepy is that? And that's in the Shetland. Yeah.
Gross.
Pretty gross. Pretty gross. So that one's just very short, but it is... they put a picture on this website of the boneless, and it just reminds me of... if you've watched Stranger Things 3, how it sort of takes all the goop from the... melted people into this giant blob. This is what it looks like. So that was in Shetland.
Gross.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Oh, gross. Imagine seeing something like that, or even thinking that you've seen something like that.
Yeah.
That'd mess you up. Hence I labelled it what I did. Now, another popular Aussie folklore is the theory that Jack the Ripper actually lived in Melbourne.
What?
Yeah. So the theory was, because the murders stopped when this particular person left England,
and
then there were some horrific murders in Melbourne.
That he's jumped ship.
When he was living in Melbourne.
Whoa.
They're pretty sure Frederick Bailey Deeming may very well have been Jack the Ripper, because it's an unsolved case.
Of course.
No one really knows. So he moved to Melbourne and started a family of his own. It was short-lived because he was caught after he murdered his wife.
Oh.
But he'd already murdered other women as well. So basically, the evidence of the murder of the wife matched
a
lot of the victims from Jack the Ripper's, so that the way he did it, very similar to the victims of Jack the Ripper. And he also killed all 4 of their kids the same way.
What?
So he's obviously, regardless, that's pretty coincidental
that
this guy,
and
then he's obviously got the bloodlust. Well, he's a complete psychopath to do what he did in the first place. If it's him, obviously it's a sickness and he couldn't stop.
Whoa, that's pretty creepy. Why did you think of it that way?
Yeah, well, it is. If you're a psychopath, you're a psychopath. That's why they have this. That's why you have people like serial killers.
Did they have anything on what happened to old mate when he lived in Melbourne?
I believe he just was arrested and then he died while in prison.
Okay,
Yeah.
creepy.
Yeah, so we may very well have had one of the most notorious.
Yeah.
Could have lived in Australia.
In Melbourne, of all places.
In Melbourne, of all places, yeah. Now, on getting closer, because we're getting closer now. We're getting closer. So, WA residents, you've probably heard of this theory that we have Satanists in Perth that practice up in Kings Park.
I hadn't personally until you mentioned it.
I had, growing up in Perth.
Yeah.
And there was always that, don't go to Kings Park at night. Like,
yeah.
You just don't.
It's just not a done thing.
There's creepers there. There's these Satanists and they'll sacrifice you. It was a like a well-known thing. But apparently it's been made more of a thing because there's been several homeless people found dead.
Really?
Yeah, and people just disappearing. Like homeless people just disappearing, and because they're homeless, they're not
looked into that much.
No, but there have been bodies found up there.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Mhm.
Well, that's a bit close to home. Go further away. That's terrible.
Yeah, but to bring it even closer.
Oh no.
When I spoke to the shaman from the local, I've completely covered.
Yeah.
There we go. She was telling me that because obviously she's pagan and they don't, or Wiccan, and they don't practice sacrifices and things like that. There are darker groups that do animals and things, but it's generally the Satanist groups. And she said she's fully aware that yes, there are practicing Satanist groups that they regularly all go to the same places, similar places, because they're places of power. Mm-hmm. And it's been handed down obviously from previous who have said this is where you go because this is where there's energy and the right power to do your rituals and whatever. And she said there was rumours through her lifetime. She's heard many rumours of human sacrifices.
Really?
And animals.
Wow.
Mainly animals. She said animals is pretty normal. That's a standard thing. Like very nonchalantly, she's like, oh yeah, but they do it all the time. Like it's something that gets done by these groups. She's not involved, obviously. But she did say she had heard.
Wow.
And because of where the area is as well, up in the back. Yeah, she said that, so this is up in the hills, Perth Hills.
Yeah.
That's why they do it, because it's easy to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another urban legend, whether it's true or not, because she said the same thing. She's like, she'd heard about it, whether or not.
Yeah, yep.
So don't go off arresting anyone that's wearing, what are they called? A star. What are they called? Pentagram.
There you go.
Oh my God. Can you tell I'm tired? I've had a house full of girls all day today.
Yeah. You've been run ragged and now you're trying to remember this.
Trying to remember all these factoids and bring you an exciting, spooky episode. Please listen next week. I swear I'll be better. I'll be refreshed. The kids will be
more good.
The kids will be back at school. I'll have all my ducks in a row. Yeah, so that's another famous one. So that was cool that she could, like, when I read this.
Yeah,
and
it's always good having someone else confirm.
She could back up that, yes, there are practicing Satanist groups that do dabble with all this stuff in Perth.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's another really creepy one. Now, I missed one the other night, because I don't know if I gone to have a shower or something, but you said you'd seen a really creepy one about a car, when you're in a car.
The Wakefield Freeway or Highway over east. I didn't honestly catch a great deal of it because it was a bit too creepy, and it was a girl that is spotted on the freeway quite regularly. I'm pretty certain it was in New South Wales on the Wakefield Freeway. There's a section of road which is notorious on really cold nights when there's more chance of being black ice, that this girl is spotted in a white dress near the side of the freeway. And what happens is you notice she's there, and then as you get closer, obviously it's on a night with black ice, so you're going reasonably cautiously. She walks in front of the car. And she's not really there, but she walks in front of the
It's
car.
enough to give you a heart attack.
Enough to properly spook you.
Get you to stop the car.
Get you to at least slow right down.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look in the revision mirror to check, there's a nun in the back seat. And to make it 3 times more creepy, she's still there when you turn around to check.
Wow, so this has been seen by
This has been seen by multiple people on the Wakefield freeway over east. And that, that was enough to make me crap myself.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, and it all obviously all correlates that they've all seen and had this exact same. And it's something, it's not just a figure or a blur, it's to be able to say, I saw the girl, and then there was a nun in the back seat.
Yeah. And
it's not something that just...
sort of bunches together. They said not all stories were exactly the same. Sometimes there was no nun, but, you know, it was...
But there were multiple ones with the nun?
A couple. That was less frequent, but the girl was in all of them. Yeah. And she was either by the side of the freeway, sometimes near a bridge. Yeah. You know, in this one small section of freeway.
Yeah.
And the revision mirror one, that's what creeps me out the most.
Yeah, because that's something when you're driving at night, I always worry. Worst. I'm like, I don't want to look in my rearview mirror. I just don't want to do it. It's just creepy. Yeah. Now that reminds me of one that I had heard on. I think it was Paranormal 911 again. Yeah. Great show, check it out. It is a good show. A young girl. Oh no, it wasn't. It was not. It was on a podcast, a US podcast, and it was a young girl that was a student, and she thought she'd hit someone with a car. Yeah. Same thing. Like a girl stepped out, a woman. Yeah. And felt the bump, felt everything. Whoa. Gets out, completely freaking out. Looks all around the car, under the car, everywhere. Can't see anything. Doesn't know what else to do because she's like, There's nothing here, but but I definitely hit someone. I'm not going crazy. I know I felt it. Yeah. And then got upset, drove home, and then obviously didn't sleep that night. Like, what the hell? Because she's definitely, and I guess she was terrified that, the woman had walked off or something, and then she was going to get into a horrible amount of trouble, like hit and run or whatever, but she looked to see if there was any sign of her. And then that following week had gone to a friend's house that lives right where she'd, like, on that road. Yeah. And he'd said, oh, no, it happens all the time. Like, it's a regular thing. People see her on the porch. People see her in their house. People see her walk out into the front of the car. She's not real. But it was this regular. And then...
If it jolts your car, though... That's just...
This is exactly it. It's like, what? Yeah. But this is the scary thing, is that this whole street, and I'm chasing up a story at the moment. There's a whole street in WA that someone's told me that their mum's told them the story. Yeah. So it's and every single person, or she lives here, so it's somewhere around here. Yeah. She said every single person on the street sees the same man. And they all experienced him quite often. It's a regular thing. So I'm chasing this one up. That's cool. So this is obviously something that does happen. It's like a whole street haunting. Yeah. This girl. But she manipulates radios, opens doors, blinds, like the amount of things that these blokes were telling her. Yeah. She does at their place, and then they've spoken to all the neighbours, and there's the same thing. She does it to everybody. So no one really knows what to do about it, because she wanders. Yeah. So that's a pretty similar kind of thing. Yeah. It just makes you think, well, what? So how is she able to do that? Like
on such a distance.
Yeah. Yeah. And she did get hit. That's how she died. She got hit by a car. So like you'd think that might be a residual, but then she's able to then go to people's houses and dick around with stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty next level.
Yeah. On the note of manipulative spirits. Yes. And creepy legends related to trickery, a really spooky one that I've heard about is the black-eyed children. Have you heard of the black-eyed children?
I have not heard of the black-eyed children.
This is really, really creepy, and I apologise if you lose sleep over this. But this isn't just a one-off or a couple of people have seen them. This is something that there are tons and tons and tons of stories. If you look it up, you'll be able to hear them on all kinds of YouTube videos and things like that. Yeah. But the folklore behind it is that basically they either appear as from the age from 16 under. So, and they usually appear in pairs.
Right.
But sometimes they're on their own. So they're children. And it's always at night.
Mm-hmm.
Like really weird hour of night. It's wee small hours. But they have solid black eyes. Like there's no white,
pupil,
no
no
pupil. The
anything.
whole eye is black.
Yeah.
I'll just read a little bit of research that I did. A report written in the late 90s by Brian Bethel reported seeing a couple of creepy kids trying to get him to give them a ride. And he said they both had, this is on a highway,
Yeah.
they both had black eyes, and the second he saw them as he approached, like normally you'd see kids, you'd think, oh, you know, poor kids, and you wouldn't get this sense of dread, but he was overwhelmed with fear and dread before he got near them.
Even got close.
So that is something with all the encounters I've read, you feel it before you even see the kids. You feel this dread, anxiousness, you feel terrified before you've even seen them. And so the folklore is that they're a solid, tangible creature that's seeking to gain entry into our world.
Right.
In some fashion. And what they do is they appear at people's homes, and they usually use the excuse of, can we please use your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Or our mum, we need to call our mum. So they always pull very, like...
Yeah, convincing arguments.
Very convincing arguments, because they're usually two little kids or a small child, and saying, help me, please let me into your house, I need to use your phone.
Yep.
But apparently they're always very flat, like their voices.
Yep.
And usually every single time there's issues with electrics. So almost every single story, the lights go funny, or another thing is security cameras. One person's security camera managed to get a photo of one of them, but they were happening all the time. So people were getting cameras to try and capture these weird kids.
Yeah.
And one guy got a photo of one of them. It's really creepy.
Yeah.
And but most of the time they all crap out, and then once they've gone, they come back on again.
Whoa.
So that's another thing that's driving people crazy, because they've tried to call the police and report that there's children out
wandering
at 2 a.m, but there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
Because they're quite frightened by them,
as
you would be. So so what they show up, and they're like, they quite often will say, I need to use your phone. They're almost always spotted outside the house.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll just be playing. They'll be in your backyard playing.
Whoa.
So you'll hear noises in the yard. A lot of people first will report the dogs going mental at the door, like predatory, like there's a predator, and the kids seem completely unfazed by this. And the creepiest bit, a couple of the ones I heard, is that when you look through the window, they know, so they turn immediately and look at you.
Don't.
So like there was one guy said his dog was going crazy.
Yeah.
He heard noises in the yard, and then he just peered through a crack, would have been about a centimetre, just to have a look. And he said this kid would have been 20 metres away, sitting with his back to him. And the second that he put his eyes through the curtain, his head, he just spun straight around, stared straight at him. So he knew. He knew he was there. The other creepy incident, the creepiest one I read. So basically, the folklore is they're harbingers of doom, and if you let them into your house, you're stuffed.
Yeah.
So most people don't let them into the house.
Yeah.
But there's been stories that there's been very mysterious deaths of people that have let them in. Not that they'd be able to say there was children at the house, would there? So weird deaths, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what if many deaths are linked to these creepy children, and we just don't know because they can't really tell you if they're dead.
Does
make it tricky. But there was one woman. This one got me. So she's been working late.
Yep.
She's come home, had her dinner. Her partner and her have gone to sleep, and her dogs. And first of all, one of the dogs just started freaking out.
Yep.
And ran to the door, barking, like really going crazy. And then the other dog started barking and going crazy. And so she first, basically what she does is like with children, you show them what the you go, stop being silly, there's nothing there, and you show them.
Yeah.
And then bring them inside. So she just reached to unlock the door, and then something told her, don't unlock the door. Like, don't do it. She just had this feeling, this dread. And so leans sideways and peers through the window, and there's two kids, one about 16, one about 8, and they're both just looking straight at her as she turns to look through the glass. So they just already know where she is and say, we know you're there. So there's been no knock. They haven't knocked, they haven't rung the bell, they haven't done anything.
Cool, man.
Black eyes, both of them, solid black eyes, and they've said to her, we know you're there, we need to come in, our mummy needs us to call, we need to use your phone. Like this flat voice. And so she's like panicking.
As you would.
They're not fazed by the dogs. She's like full of anxiety, like, oh my God. She said she felt instant doom before she even saw there was anything there.
Yeah.
She knew. She felt them.
Ew.
And then she said when she did nothing, she just pretended, she thought, if I stay quiet, they'll think I've gone. But they knew. They somehow knew she was there. They knew she was a woman. They hadn't seen her, but they knew. And then they started getting agitated and said, let us in. We need to come in. And like tone changed completely. And so this poor woman's like
Horror movie stuff.
freaking out. Like, and then there's a part of her going, what if they need help, but they're not normal? She's like, there's something wrong. They're not normal. And so she ended up going back to dragging the dogs, because the dogs started doing this horrible whimpering by this stage, like this pain noise.
Yeah.
And so she's just sort of tried to pull the dogs and quietly back away from the door. And then she goes back to bed and just pretends that she's not seen it, because she's like, but she didn't sleep, of course. And she just sat there waiting, like hoping. And I think they knocked. From memory in the story, they did knock after she'd gone back to bed. But she was in such a state, she woke up the husband. The husband thought she was imagining things. And she said she has lived in fear ever since that they're going to come back.
As you would.
And she called the police and reported it. And they were just, we've had all kinds of weird, just don't worry about it. It's just kids being silly. But she's like, it's not. It's really not. It's something else. So this is something that a lot of people have had happen. This isn't like...
Screw that.
So, yeah.
That's not even close to cool. That's terrible.
It's awful, isn't it? So that's a pretty good one. Yeah. Good luck sleeping tonight.
Buddy.
If you hear a knock on the door, don't answer it. Yep. So I thought for the skeptics out there, I would do a bit of debunking. So there's a legend from climbers climbing in Scotland, from climbing Ben Macdui. I think I've said that right. I should know this. I'm of Scottish descent. But it's the second highest mountain in Scotland, and people have reported getting an eerie feeling of fear when walking up this mountain, and they've also heard footsteps following them and seen a looming grey figure.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of mist and fog.
Yep.
Now what happens is light diffuses, and I actually I've read a scientific explanation into how people can see their own shadow moving directly beside them unattached to you.
Oh, okay.
So people mistake it for being, and it copies everything you're doing, and it stays a distance away from you. I mean, and then footsteps can be down to when you're up on a mountain, the air is thinner, everything's different.
Yeah.
It messes with your head too.
Oh,
High altitude.
Lack of oxygen.
All of that.
Yeah.
But also echoes off various rock faces.
Yeah.
Sound travels in a weird way. Even here, we're on top of a hill, directly below us is a valley.
Yeah.
There'll be sounds that are coming from the girls will be on the right-hand side of the house, but it will sound like they're on the left-hand side of the house, given the way the wind's blowing, because of the shape of the landscape.
Yeah.
So footsteps is something, it could even be an echo coming back. So this one can completely be explained. The grey figure that they've seen looming is 100% their own shadow. But what happens is the way the light diffuses through the air because of the different
mist and everything else.
Because it happened to a woman when she was hiking and she looked into it. And then there was these scientists who had, she did all this scientific research, and it all proves, yes, it's this weird phenomena that happens. It's 100% scientific. It's not paranormal.
Yep.
Where you get a copy of it's your shadow, but instead of being alongside you. It just emulates
Yeah.
and just appears to be free moving, but it's actually your shadow.
And there you go.
Yeah, so that one's debunked. So climbers of Ben Macdui, should say climbers of Ben Macdui, fear not. It's not a bloody ghost, it's just your friggin' shadow.
Just gotta wave.
Just weave. Test it out.
Yeah.
Nay, you bother.
Go on.
I've gone Scottish, it's happened.
Bluster.
I've gone. Okay, bringing it back to Australia. The Poinciana woman. This one's awesome, from Darwin. Not awesome,
No.
because so she was apparently raped by a bunch of men, bunch of asshole bastard men, who also beat her.
Yep.
She fell pregnant to one of the rapists, and then decided to take her own life. So she hung herself in a poinciana tree.
Yep.
That's how the story goes. And then ever since then, there's been reports of a woman luring men and then killing them.
Mm-hmm.
So strange, mysterious deaths in the area. I kind of like that. Not that every man deserves to be murdered, but I like the fact that she's like getting a bit of revenge. Like, can I lure you with my beauty and then destroy you? Yeah. So that's another one in Darwin. Yeah, she would go from this beautiful, sexy woman.
That's right.
And then the second that she got them away and where she needed them to be, she turned into this hideous, scary hag with sharp teeth that would destroy them and rip them, disembowel them. So that's an Australian one. So that's in Darwin. Yeah. Look out. If you're in Darwin, just be wary of beautiful women while you're in Darwin. Darwin. Now, along the lines of sharp teeth, this one's great. So this legend is from near where my mum grew up, but not exactly where. So near Glasgow. But the Gorbals, which is like the slums. Let's just call it the slums of Glasgow. So, are you ready for Jenny with the iron teeth? There are nearly 50,000 souls laid to rest on its green hilltops. The quiet peacefulness of this place was disturbed one September evening in 1954 when a policeman, responded to the reports that there were hundreds of children had descended upon the cemetery.
Whoa.
The kids were seeking to avenge two boys that had been devoured, apparently, according to them. There was like 200 kids.
That's a lot of
by
kids.
The Gorbals vampire.
Whoa.
So the locals suspected that they'd actually seen Jenny with the iron teeth, a demonic hag who was said to have roamed Glasgow Green in the 19th century, dragging unsuspected children into her lair with her metal jaws.
Whoa.
So she was a legend.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny with the iron teeth. She was a legend in the 19th century in this area of Glasgow, in the Gorbals.
Yep.
This was like the folklore, this story that, oh, be careful of Jenny with the iron teeth. Don't be a shite. Don't be a wee shite, or Jenny, I'll get you. So that story existed, and then one day in the 50s, just at random, all these kids are like, we saw her, she ate two of our friends, and apparently like all the kids had weapons.
Whoa.
Like fire pokers and slingshots, anything they could grab, these kids, all of them, knives, 200 kids, like, we're going to get her.
That's when you know your parents have overdone the story, and that's the end of
it. Come on now.
It's time.
It's time to tell them the truth. There is no Jenny with the iron teeth. We're going to murder some poor homeless woman with a metal jaw. Oh. But that right there just sums up Glaswegian, like being brought up with Glaswegian family and Glaswegian parents. You've got this fire in your belly. You're brought up to believe you can take on anything. Like me as a child chasing off a burglar with a bat.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm invincible.
Yeah.
But, it's crazy. Anyway, so that's a pretty good story. Jenny
one.
with the iron teeth. Thought that was a good one. Now, along the lines of being wrong place, wrong time, like, let's just say that maybe this poor Jenny with the iron teeth was a story that's gotten out of hand, and a bunch of people have been like, right, a bunch of kids have gone to take out some poor woman.
Yep.
There is a really scary urban legend in the US called the Green Man.
Right.
A faceless man that's seen wandering down the highways. Like,
Whoa.
regularly, to the point everyone, like, it was terrifying. People would freak out. It was reported all the time that they'd seen this faceless man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was in this particular residential area. They'd hear footsteps. Then a man would appear with no face or, like, a mangled face.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, people that saw him would run off terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became more and more of a building thing because more and more people would see him. They used to call him Charlie No Face or the Green Man. But it turns out, this is so sad, this story, it was a real man.
No.
And his name was Ray Robinson. And the only time he could go for a walk without scaring people was nighttime. And so then he became an urban legend because people believed he was some sort of ghost or monster because they'd seen him in the night out for his night walk. But obviously, I mean, yeah, I can totally get why people would be scared.
Sure.
But the poor man.
Poor guy.
I know. He was born in 1910.
Yep.
He was disfigured. Oh, sorry, here we go. He was disfigured as a result of an electrical accident when he was 8. He touched active wires, which effectively maimed him.
Ooh.
And knowing his appearance would scare people, that's why he would take his walks at night. And he always took the same route along Route 351 in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. While he was just trying to go for a walk in the dead of the night, he was the result of this. He was basically known as the boogeyman.
Whoa.
Isn't that so sad?
That's not very nice.
He died in 1985, and obviously the story stopped then. But he was a real man. He wasn't a monster.
Oh.
Poor guy. Now, growing up, were you scared of razor blades in your slides?
Yes.
So was I.
Yeah.
So this was an actual thing that happened, that apparently a couple of men broke into a water park
Yeah.
and put razor blades in the slides.
That's the story I heard too.
Yeah. So growing up, I don't know if listeners, please write in and tell me if you had the same fear of slides, because I did.
There's got to be hundreds of people.
There's got to be. I was terrified. Every slide.
Yep.
Going to Adventure World was a nightmare.
Oh.
I was like, I don't trust them. What if there's one there? Because apparently, like, they missed one when they cleaned out these razor blades. Apparently, they missed one and a child got his leg gashed open.
Yep.
So, as a result, our entire generation was terrified of slides and I would always check.
Yep.
Check all the grooves if you could.
But what can you do? You can't. It's too late. But anyway, it was so common.
So common. So that was another weird one.
Yep.
From when we were kids. Razor blades. And what kind of a sicko does that? Now, here's another creepy one that apparently, like, this is just something that if you grow up in particular parts of the US, it's just something that's you see and you hear.
Okay.
Water babies.
Right.
Now, I didn't know about water babies. I thought water babies, cute childhood book that we had growing up with cute little illustrations.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, well, I still don't know about water babies. What are they?
Well, apparently, from the accounts that I've read, is they try and lure. A lot of people basically will be walking around, like in the bush or on a walk or whatever, and they'll hear a newborn baby crying or a baby crying.
Right.
And naturally, they play on your instincts.
Yeah.
So you think, oh, I've got to go and find this baby. And so they creep closer to the sound and closer to the sound and eventually come upon no baby. And there's been a lot of mysterious deaths.
Really?
Mainly children drowning. And also grown men dying and things like this, drowning. But a lot of children, like back in the day.
Yeah.
And apparently, like, groups of children said, well, we heard a baby crying, and then one of them will go to investigate, and then they'll find them drowned in the lake.
Whoa.
So, this is apparently it's very common, like most people in parts of the US have said, oh yeah, you just don't go, when you hear them, you just don't go near them, you just ignore them.
Right.
And there was one grown, I remember hearing the stories, this big burly hunting kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he said he was out with a bunch of the cousins and they were doing what they do, and he'd heard one. And he said he got closer to see what it was, but obviously, I don't know if he's got really good eyesight or something, but he said before he got to it, he saw this creature and saw that it was making the noise, and then he took off running.
Whoa.
So he saw this creepy looking creature that was like with its mouth open making the noise of a crying baby.
Whoa.
And he said wasn't just once or twice, so he knew what it was, and he took off, went home, and was terrified.
Yeah.
And grabbed like all his younger cousins. Was like, quick, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the problem was he was one of many children, so his instinct. He said he's just terrified. He's lucky he saw it before he got to it.
Yeah.
Because
he
had a baby brother. He had a baby brother at the time, so he was thinking, "Oh God, my baby brother's got out here."
Yeah.
So he'd run off to go find his baby brother, and he says he remembers distinctly being panicked, thinking, "I have to get to him. How did he get out here?"
Yeah.
And then saw this thing before, like obviously hadn't noticed he'd gotten that close.
Whoa.
Yeah, and this isn't just this is a lot of people. Like this is just something that you see, apparently, growing up in this area. But the folklore is that it is either it's like a form. I mean, there's so many stories about this. We'll do an episode on the fae and on fairies, because I don't. When I say fairies, I don't mean cute little glittery winged things.
Yeah.
The actual...
Ain't no Tinkerbell.
It's nothing... It ain't no Tinkerbell. Fairies are terrifying. Like, the old stories, they're more like goblin-y, weird creatures.
Oh.
So these are, like, a form of that, but a Native American...
style.
Well, it's the folklore goes back to a Native American tribe, and what the theory was to keep the tribe strong, they would drown babies in the lake. So the ones that were lame or weren't as big or strong or had health problems, they would just, because it's a very easy way of disposing of them. You just hold them under the water. And so this is where the legend started.
Wow.
So the souls of these babies or some sort of thing that's formed from the energy of these little lives being taken has created...
a revenge.
Yeah, same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but there's another thing that says it's a mermaid type creature.
Oh.
That uses the sound of crying babies to lure people to their death and drowns them.
There you go.
But all of it links with drownings.
How crazy.
So these water babies, when you hear them, you don't go near them because they're usually near the water, and they'll pull you into the water. So it's just a known thing, and it's in like history books. It goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. If you hear a baby crying, ignore it. Which is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all programmed.
We're programmed, which is why they're very clever.
Yep.
Which is why they use it. So there's another creepy one. Believe it or not, it's up to you.
Yep.
So on to another great Aussie urban legend is the ghost of Frederick Fisher, or Fisher's ghost.
Yep.
Now this is a really cool story. So this was on a June evening in 1826. Frederick Fisher left his house in Campbelltown to run some errands, but he never returned. He was gone without a trace, leaving no clues, so no one could explain where he went, what happened.
Just disappeared.
He just vanished. 4 months after he vanished, a local resident stumbled into Campbelltown Hotel looking very pale and shaken. Very panicky.
Yep.
He told everyone in the pub that he'd just encountered the ghost of Frederick Fisher. The spectral farmer had been sitting on the fence by the road, pointing his finger at a paddock near the river that ran nearby. And then he apparently just faded away. So he appeared, he pointed towards the field, and then he disappeared again. So this guy was like in a state. Like, oh my God. I've just seen Frederick, but he wasn't alive. It was a ghost. Like, because they're all still wondering whether... Because I'm a small community. They're wondering where's Frederick. So the man who had seen the ghost was wealthy and well-respected member of the community. So the police decided, okay, this is strange. Like, he wouldn't make this up. He wasn't a nutter or anything.
Yeah.
So the police decided to investigate the paddock that the ghost had pointed to. To their shock, they found Frederick's body.
Whoa.
Had been dead and hidden from view. His murderer was found to be a George Worrell, Fisher's neighbour and friend, who had been taking care of his legal matters in the past. Worrell had already raised eyebrows because after his disappearance he told everyone that Fisher had said he could have his house, so he'd moved in.
Whoa.
And he said that Fisher he'd sailed back to England and sold everything to him.
Wow, crap story, mate.
Yeah. So once the body showed up, they realised he was to blame.
Yeah.
But in those days, you could get away with that sort of thing. Had the ghost of your murder victim not showed up and pointed to where he was buried.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Fisher quite liked being a ghost, to the point that he still haunts the hotel, and is mentioned in legend today. So people are still seeing him hanging out along the river or on the fence.
That's pretty crazy.
So if you're ever in, is it Campbelltown?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, pop into the old, what inn was it? I'll see if I can find the name of the inn. And if I can't find it right now this second, I will I'll put it in the comments. Yeah, so that's a pretty cool one.
That's really cool.
Another cool Aussie one, just a quick one, is the Diabari, or Giabari, which is an Aussie myth. They're a creature that has a human appearance on the front, but on their backs they display lumps of folded flesh.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they look like a sort of rocky blob. And then they turn around and they've got a face and arms, and like the whole front is normal human body, but the back's is this big lumpy.
Whoa.
So people apparently have seen them out in Whoop Whoop.
Whoa, creepy.
Yeah, hunters in particular have come across them apparently.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they have too many sips of moonshine there. Maybe they're just hoping to find, like this other one that we saw, which I wasn't going to mention, but I will because I think it's hilarious.
It is funny.
Because it's quite clearly someone's drunk missus in a sexy outfit for him on the Nullarbor, but she's called the Nullarbor Nymph. And apparently, so the story goes, she lives with the kangaroos, but if you look it up and look at the pictures, it's totally someone's missus. And they've gone, go on, put this sexy outfit on and go pose with the kangaroos. It's 100% someone's raunchy photo. Or someone's little fantasy.
That is a good one.
It is a bloody good one. Another cool Aussie one took place in Lismore. So in 1907, a young railway worker died trying to stop a runaway train with his bare hands, and unfortunately he was critically injured, but he did die. So they buried him in the cemetery. The family erected a big cross as a monument because he was such a wonderful young man he tried to save everyone. And
clearly, if you're trying to stop a train with your bare hands, you're putting in some effort.
Yeah, that's pretty heroic. So they erected a beautiful big cross, a big gravestone in the cemetery, and apparently, so his name was William Steenson, and in 1918 the cross began to glow.
Whoa.
So it was completely illuminated, and apparently...
I do like this one. I remember you telling me this one.
Bright white light. It would glow, and you could go there at night and see it. Like, it wasn't just a one-off thing. It was a regular thing. To the point people investigated it to see if it was, a trick if someone had installed a light. Some theories were that wherever the granite or whatever it was came from might have been radioactive. Yeah. But... all signs pointed to the fact it wasn't. There was nothing. It was just a standard cross, like other crosses in the cemetery.
Yeah.
Many people went and flocked to this to see it. A lot of people believed it was God himself illuminating it as a sign of his heroic act of how he died. So that's quite a nice way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
But sadly, you can't see this cross anymore because it was actually vandalised. Someone took it.
Yeah.
And then miraculously it's been replaced with a normal one and it doesn't glow anymore.
Yeah.
So what happened to the glowing cross of Lismore? It's pretty sad. It was
pretty sad. It's not a nice thing to do, but the weird thing was that I remember watching the video that we were watching, and they were saying that it was there for long enough that they were flying in reporters from the other side of Australia to look at it. So it was common. Like, it was seen by a lot of people.
So, cover up, maybe?
Who knows?
Yeah, I reckon it might have been. The last story this evening is Devil's Pool in Queensland. So the story goes that there was a beautiful young Aboriginal woman who was forced to marry a chief. of a tribe. Shortly after they were married, she fell in love with someone else. Obviously younger, someone more suited to her age.
Yeah.
And someone that she loved, someone that she actually loved. And so she'd run away with this lover to Devil's Pool, which, as it's now called. And they were chased by the tribe and the husband. And he sort of said, you've got two choices here. And she decided that death was a better option. So she jumped off the waterfall into the pool and died. So they still believe she still resides there. And there's been 17 people have drowned at the Devil's Pool. I mean, skeptics will say it's probably just dangerous torrents of water and all that sort of thing. But it does sort of coincide with this legend, this Aboriginal legend. So that's another cool one that we've got here in Australia. We will have to do another episode on this subject. There are so many worldwide.
Yep.
And finding more and more Aussie ones too. There's plenty more Aussie ones that I've got written down here, but we just don't have the time to put them all in. If you had a weird story in your local town of some strange thing, a warning,
got one, so
we know you've got them. Don't hold out on me. Send them in, because I'd like to hear what the story was in your town.
Yeah, there's got to be some rippers out there.
Oh, there is. There's got to be. So I'd love to hear your little town legends.
Yep.
Send them through to me. You know where. Southern Paranormal page or audreybramble@mail.com. Don't be shy. I want to hear your stories. And thanks again for tuning in for another episode of Spooky Town Tales. Sorry this one was a bit slapdash, but it is school holidays. And it's very hard to throw together an episode with children at home and social commitments.
You've worked magic, darling. You've done an incredible job.
So thanks again. Be sure to like and share the episode with people that you think would get a hoot out of it. And please send me your feedback. Let me know if you're enjoying the episodes or tell me what you'd like to hear. So if you've got a particular subject, paranormal or just strange, that you'd like me to cover, let me know and I'll do an episode for you. I'd love to hear from you. So take it easy. Stay creepy. This is Morgan.
And Jimmy.
Signing off for the night. Bye.
Bye.